guys changed the question.
Yeah, this is true. We were going to look bad. Okay.
Change the question. I come up with some lame answers and not the same question. Okay.
Rock and Shock 2012 coverage with Outside the Cinema. We're here. We said I lamented this earlier when we first met David. He's the one guy that I had to make sure that we talked to and we met this year. And it's David Naughton, who is of course the star of my favorite horror movie of all time, American Werewolf in London. It's a pleasure to talk to you. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be here.
Glad. You having a good time here at Rock and Shock?
So, this has been a really good show. It's one that I've heard about. I've never been here. This is my first year here. And, I'm finding that the fans are people that have been to the show multiple years. So they know the drill. They're very polite. They come well-informed, and they're ready to get some autographs.
Good time. So obviously you're best known for American Werewolf in London. It's one of the greatest horror films of all time. Is it tough?
That's a tall order, but
no,
thanks for including me in that.
No, honestly,
lexicon.
I'm not even talking it up because you're sitting next to me. I mean, we did our list, we did our top 6 list last week of 80s horror films, and American Werewolf in London sit firmly in my number 1 spot. There's no question.
Cool. Well, thank you.
And I know a lot of other people feel like that. Is it tough sometimes though when there's a film that's become that classic? Kind of, do you get sick of talking about it? I ask you about it?
No, that's one of the things that it's the reason why I come to the show is because there are a lot of fans out there who would like to tell me what their impressions were when they first met it. It's usually when they first saw the film, they go, we were terrorized and we were young and we had running out of the theater and so on and so forth. So I kind of get a kick out of listening to people relate the stories of when they first saw the film.
It's very cool. So, but obviously, it's not the only thing you've done. The two things that people always bring up is, you did the Dr. Pepper commercial and you were in American Werewolf in London. But outside the cinema, we bring up those forgotten classics. And you're a star of one of the films that both Chris and I absolutely loved when we watched it. And it's a family, almost adventure film called Midnight Madness.
Yes. It was originally called the All-Night Treasure Hunt because that's, in fact, what it is an all-night treasure hunt. But they changed the name. It was released on Buena Vista Films. What studio could that be?
Sounds familiar. I can't quite put my finger on it, though.
And it was one of those things. What people remind me is that Michael J. Fox played my younger brother in the show, and it was so hilarious because we got along great. He was dabbling in the idea of doing television at the time.
Dabbling.
So little did we know he'd go on to do television history, but. It was really fun. One of the things about it, though, is when you're shooting at night, night after night after night, you really do get into that vampire syndrome where, as soon as the sun starts to come up, we'd wrap and then try to go back and sleep during the day, which is not something I've ever been able to do very well. But so it was kind of a challenge in that respect for that movie. And it was also co-directed. It was one of the first times that 2 guys who wrote the script got a chance to co-direct, which was a union film. And they had to get permission through the DGA to co-direct. And it was like, the way the railroad was built. One started in one scene, the other started in another scene, and the 2 of us met in the middle of that film, shot at the end of that movie down at the Bonaventure Hotel. This is where that big climax of that film takes place. And that's where the 2 separate production companies, it seemed like 2 film companies meet and finished off the film down there in downtown LA.
Sounds like a pretty unique experience.
It was. Part of getting the 2 crews together was to try to expedite, because they were separate entities. As you remember, each team had their own little thing going on and their own unique characters and trying to solve the clues of 88 keys or whatever it was. And only on certain occasions would we meet up at locations. So that's where it was pretty, to expedite the shooting, have 2 crews going at the same time.
Excellent. So obviously, we've talked about the biggies. You have done a ton of TV work too, but this is always my closing question, and so it's one of my favorite questions to ask you guys. In your, in your career, is there a particular film or a TV show that you did that you think might get overlooked that you'd like more people to check out? Like, if someone's getting into you and they saw American Werewolf and they're like, I really like this guy David Naughton, what would you point them towards?
Well, one of the things we did last year, or not last year, actually, it's about 4 years ago, was a little movie called Brutal Massacre, which is it's a comedy about the making of a horror film called Brutal Massacre, and it's not a particularly good movie. I mean, the movie that we're making in the film, it's sort of a documentary in a sense. It was written and directed by Stephen Mena. I play the director. It's everything that can go wrong on a small production can go wrong in this movie, and horror genre fans really enjoy this film, but you don't necessarily have to be a horror fan. It's just an independent, small film that I think was overlooked and didn't really get the credit that it deserved.
If I remember, there was an issue when it was trying to come out too. I think it was owned by somebody and then somebody else, with the rights, and it got dumped on DVD kind of unceremoniously.
It was really about it was a bidding thing going on with distribution, and we had some very big companies looking to distribute it. Unfortunately, I think the wrong one was chosen, and it was kind of, as I said, slid under the radar.
Happens.
It does.
So in closing, what do you got going on now?
Well, right now I'm working on a new television show for the BYU TV network in Salt Lake City. It's going to be on cable next spring. It's a family show. It's an hour long. It's called Granite Flats. We did the pilot, and I'm very excited to report we've been picked up for 3 shows.
Oh, excellent.
I'm going right from this show to Salt Lake City. And going to slip into the role of Dr. Whittison, a straight guy who doesn't know anything about horror or horror makeup, but I'll keep that under wraps.
Excellent.